What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we're going to continue our coverage over Spawn for Spawn Sundays, where we actually do pick up with Spawn number 31 and Spawn number 32, a two-part storyline where technically we do see the return of Anti-Spawn. But this time, it's going to be a different kind of character. And matter of fact, he will no longer call himself Anti-Spawn. He'll call himself something different, something new. But at the same time, his goal is not to go after Spawn, but after somebody else. And that right there is actually pretty crazy. But at the same time, this is Spawn right now, finally getting back to New York. And with him coming back to New York, his main goal is to get back to work with what he was doing in his territory, protecting the people he actually cares for a lot. And so when we jump into Spawn number 31, we actually do pick up right now with Spawn arriving into New York. Now, the reason why I say arriving back into New York is because in our last video, Spawn was actually in Alabama. Now, the reason why he was out there is because he was actually dropped off by some angels. And so he had to work very hard to get back to New York. Now, of course, he is back in New York now, and he's very happy about the idea of being back in New York. Now, this is not Spawn being happy about the idea of being able to see Wanda nor Terry, his ex-wife and his old best friend. Instead, he wants to make sure that the people that he was protecting, the homeless people, are still okay. Because we have to remember, in the earlier books of Spawn, he basically took this area of New York and said, this area right here belongs to me. It's my territory. And the reason why he did that as a way to protect the homeless people in the area. Now, with that being said though, right now you have Spawn technically just happy about the idea of being able to find all his old friends, the homeless people, still there, and they're also happy that he is finally back. And so at first, it seemed like a great book to read, a happy story, but of course, it's about to get dark. And so then we jump over to Terran Affairs headquarters. Now this is actually an office building that's owned by Heaven. And what I mean by that is usually you have a bunch of hunters who go out in the world to hunt down hellspawns come over here to basically check in before they're able to actually hunt down hellspawns. Now with that being said, when it comes to Terran Affair headquarters, it was actually run by a different person. Now she's no longer there because thanks to the three-part miniseries that had focused on Angela, she's no longer around. And so we have a new person in charge, and that would be Raphael, or Raphael. I do know the name is pronounced in many kinds of ways. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Raphael, she's basically right now making a call over to Angel Station 1. Now remember, Angel Station 1 is basically a space station that's also owned by the forces of Heaven. Now, the reason why she's technically making this call right now because she wants to go ahead and get rid of Al Simmons. But the thing is, you actually have Angel Station 1 tell her there's now more than one Hellspawns on Earth. There are 3. The other 2 are technically weaker, but at the same time though, there are 3 Hellspawns right now on Earth. And so of course, she does get a tad bit scared. And so she does ask Angel Station 1, is their new weapon ready to go? And of course right now, they're talking about the idea of a new upgraded anti-spawn. But this right here is not going to be anti-spawn at all. It is going to be a new character that is very similar to Anti-Spawn, but works in a different kind of way. But when it comes to this new weapon, of course they need a new host. And this time, they're not going to use Jason Wynn. But then we jump over to Terry. Now, when we do, this is technically the guy who used to be the best friend of Al Simmons before Al had died 5 years ago. Now, Terry also married Wanda, the ex-wife of Al Simmons as well. But when it comes to Terry, in the earlier books of Spawn, this guy right here went through the ringer. I mean, literally, guys. And what I mean by that is, Terry went through a lot thanks to Jason Wynn, who was trying to use Terry as a scapegoat. Now, luckily for Terry, Spawn did step in and was able to clear all charges for Terry. But the thing is though, is Terry right now wondering, why did Jason use him for? And so you had Terry begin the process of trying to look into Jason Wynn files. The problem is though, his files are so secure right now that Terry is unable to access any of the files. Now, of course, this was most likely done by Jason Wynn as a way to cover up his tracks, but at the same time to make sure that no one will find out that technically he was the one who killed off Al Simmons 5 years ago. But then we jump back over to Spawn, who's right now talking to one of the many homeless people in his area. And right now they are talking about the idea of what Spawn went through over the last couple of books. Of course, angels, some racist people, an abusing father. This man went through a lot in a very short period of time. Either way right now, you didn't have the homeless guy realize that Spawn costume is technically ripped up a little bit, mainly his cape. Now remember, when it comes to his actual costume, it's made out of necroplasm, and when it comes to his costume, it's alive. It is technically a symbiote, but right now most of the cape is missing, and so right now you have Spawn realize that his cape is technically not at full strength. It is weak. Now the reason why most of the cape is actually missing, it all happened back in the Angela 3-part miniseries that we had to skip over. Now with that being said though, it's him right now hoping that his cape will be able to recover and get back to his full strength, but also the right size once again. Now this right here is going to be really important for this 2-part storyline. And so then we actually pick up with a new character known as Phil Timber. Now when it comes to Phil Timber, he is actually a new character that is going to be very important for this 2-part storyline. And the reason why, because Phil Timber used to be a guy who would get into a lot of trouble, and I mean a lot of trouble. Now, of course, the last time he went to prison, he gave his life over to God. Now, right after that though, of course, you didn't have Timber realize that, you know what, let me do God's work. And because of that, it made him the perfect choice. And you're probably wondering, the choice of what? To become the next anti-Spawn, or technically the better version of anti-Spawn. And so you have Angel Station 1, the forces of heaven, literally grab this man and say, you are going to be the new host for our new creation, just like that. And so then we jump back over to Sam and Twitch. Now remember, Sam and Twitch are technically 2 detectives in New York City. But here's the big thing though, guys, because when it comes to Sam and Twitch, they're right now blackmailing their boss. And what I mean by that is, we kind of find out their chief and also Jason Wynn, they were working together. And matter of fact, they hired Billy Kincaid, the child serial killer, to go after a certain child, the child of a political person, as a way to hurt that person in some kind of way to make sure things went their way when it comes to that political person. And so right now, with a file that came out of nowhere that says, we have information about you, we know that you have worked with Billy Kincaid, the child serial killer, it's right on the chief freaking out, and he's wondering what in the world could happen to him and his career. But then we jump back over to Spawn. Now when we do, this is technically Spawn right now being confronted by a new anti-Spawn. And technically this is not anti-Spawn. Matter of fact, this guy right here calls himself the Redeemer. Yes, you heard that right, the Redeemer. And let me explain, because right now the Redeemer is not coming after Spawn. The Redeemer is coming after a friend of Spawn, Bobby. And you're probably wondering, who is Bobby? Well, let me explain, because we've seen Bobby a lot of times in Spawn comics, but usually as a minor character, except for right now, because we kind of find out that technically the reason why the Redeemer is not going after Spawn and going after Bobby instead is because Spawn gave Bobby some of his Spawn energy. And so right now, it's the Redeemer saying, we're trying to fix that, because look at what you did. You gave your friend some of your energy. Now for Spawn, he has no idea what the Redeemer is talking about. But we do know, because remember, in the earlier books of Spawn, Bobby was dead, but Spawn had to use his powers as a way to bring Bobby back to life. And so that is what the Redeemer is talking about, what Spawn did a while back, how he brought, of course, Bobby back to life. Either way right now, this is Spawn saying, I don't care what you are trying to tell me right now. Technically, I'm trying to save my friend from you. And of course, it does lead into a battle. But here's the thing though, Redeemer right now has the advantage over Spawn. Because remember, the Redeemer is more powerful than Anti-Spawn. And technically, Spawn got lucky when it came to defeating Anti-Spawn. But on top of that, Spawn is still exhausted from his last few adventures in Alabama and of course in heaven. But at the same time, his cape right now cannot even help him, because right now it's also badly defeated, badly weakened right now. And so right now the Redeemer has the advantage. And matter of fact, you have the Redeemer beat down on Spawn to the point where he just leaves Spawn on the ground to bleed out and then takes Bobby away back to Angel Station 1. Now, right after the Redeemer had left, well, that is the moment where the cape comes to life and the cape begins to actually heal itself up, but to also heal Spawn up. And this right here is unlocking a new form for Spawn to use against his enemies. And so right now, technically, this is Spawn right now getting an upgrade to make him a tad bit stronger once again, to hopefully help him down the road against future enemies. But right now, we just wrapped up part 1, and you're going to have Spawn be confronted by God next in part 2. And so then when we get into Spawn number 32, we actually pick back up with Terran Affair headquarters, where we actually do pick up right now with Raphael, or Raphael. Either way, she's right now meeting her boss. Now, this boss right here at first technically has no name. And matter of fact, we don't learn the name of this character until the end of this book. But when she does walk in, you can tell that Raphael is kind of scared about the idea of this little old lady who's technically her boss. Now, when it comes to her boss, she does tell Raphael to call me by Mandy, because she could look into Raphael's life and realize that Raphael had a great mother, and her mother was named Mandy. Either way, once you have the two ladies begin to talk to each other about the idea of what their goal is to technically help guide souls in the right direction, well, that is the moment where you actually have Spawn appear. Now, when Spawn does appear, of course, you have everybody freaking out. Now, remember, at the end of the last chapter, Spawn did get a new outfit. Technically, it's not that much better. Really, it's very similar to the last one. Either way right now, of course, you have Raphael freaking out because technically the old lady who is her boss is in grave danger right now because of Spawn. Because when it comes to Raphael, when she does look at Spawn, she looks at Spawn as a hellspawn, something evil, demonic, and right now it needs to be killed off. And so of course, that is the moment she says, bring in security, like right now. And that's when you have all these different kinds of guards just bust right in with guns like, okay, we're here, we're going to surround him, like, okay, we got this. But the problem is though, when they get around Spawn, when they look up, they realize Homeboy now has a hostage, and that hostage is actually, of course, the old lady, who's right now going by Mandy, but she is the boss of Raphael and most angels in this area. And so right now, it's Spawn saying, you have one option right now. Give me Bobby back now. If you don't, I'm going to kill off this old lady right here and now. And of course, for Raphael, she's freaking out right now because her boss is in grave danger right now because of Spawn. Now you're probably wondering how in the world did Spawn find this place at all, because technically this place was hidden. This place belongs to the forces of heaven, and we do get a small flashback. And when it comes to the small flashback, we kind of find out that technically Spawn was given directions to this place by Cagliostro. Now Cagliostro is a very interesting character, and technically we have not learned anything at all about the character just yet, but later on we will. But either way, right now he was the one who told Spawn where to go if he wants to get Bobby back in his life again. But then we jump back over to Terry and Wanda, and this is actually very important. And the reason why, because technically right now, you have Terry telling Wanda that he's trying to learn more about Jason Wynn, and why Jason Wynn tried to use him as a scapegoat. And so right now, technically, you have Terry telling Wanda, I put in a transfer request that will give me the ability to work under Jason, so that I'll be able to work close to him and to figure out why in the world is he coming after me for? Like, what is this man actually plotting to do to me and my family? Now, of course, Wanda is scared, but she understands why Terry is actually doing this for, to get some answers. And so, of course, right now, all he has to do is turn in his transfer request, and most likely he'll begin the process of working for Jason Wynn. And speaking of Jason Wynn, we finally see him in this two-part storyline. But when we do, it's technically right now Jason Wynn freaking out. And the reason why he is freaking out, because right now he's getting a call from the sheriff of the police department about the idea that someone had a file that has all the information to prove that Jason Wynn and the sheriff of the police department had hired Billy Kincaid, the serial child killer, to go out there and kill a Pacific child that belonged to a Pacific politician. And so, of course, right now, it's Jason freaking out because this is another problem on his plate. And he's wondering who in the world is doing all of this. Now, of course, you do have the sheriff actually tell Jason Wynn it was Spawn. But for Jason, he has no idea who this Spawn character actually is. And so right now, he wants to know why in the world is Spawn coming after him so much for? Like, why? What did he do to Spawn? And we know what, because 5 years ago, Jason hired someone to kill off Al Simmons. And Al knows, but Jason has no idea Spawn is actually Al. But then we jump back over to Spawn. Now, when we do, it's technically Spawn right now still telling Raphael what he wants. And of course, he wants Bobby. He wants Bobby right now in exchange for the old lady's life. Now, of course, when it comes to Raphael, she does not want to do that at all. And matter of fact, she keeps telling Spawn, Bobby is not here. Matter of fact, Bobby is right now on Angel Station 1. He's in space, so honestly, you came here for nothing. But for Spawn, he knows that Raphael has the ability to teleport Bobby back down to Earth to this specific area. And so right now it's him saying, no. You are going to bring Bobby here now. If you don't, I am going to basically kill this old lady. And of course, you have Raphael realize that Spawn is actually very serious. But at the same time, he's not that serious because Spawn is not going to kill an innocent old lady. But at the same time, though, he will kill the guards to get Bobby back. Either way, she said, you know what? Fine. I'll bring Bobby here. And of course, Bobby is teleported back down to Earth right in front of Spawn. But now her goal is to tell the guards to go ahead and kill off Spawn and Bobby. And of course, we do get a few pages where you have the guards try to kill off Spawn. And on top of that, you also have the Redeemer there as well. Now, here's the thing though, because with Spawn's new costume, he's technically more powerful than he was in the last chapter. And so right now, when it comes to their battle, Spawn is able to actually defeat the Redeemer just like that. Bam, bam, boogie. The Redeemer is defeated. The guards, they honestly do not stand a chance at all. Either way, it's Spawn realizing that he has to get Bobby out of here now. And so right at the very last second, him and Bobby do teleport out of that building. Now you do have Spawn and Bobby being able to teleport back to the alleyway they stay at, but right after they do that, of course, Spawn just passes out, and of course, you have Bobby right now freaking out. But that is the moment where Bobby is confronted by Cagliostro. He does ask Cagliostro to help Spawn out, but you have Cagliostro tell Bobby, listen, Spawn is okay, he is just resting. And honestly, he needs the rest because what he just did is crazy. But on top of that, he had just met God. And you have Bobby like, wait, what? He met God. At the same time, you're probably like, wait, what do you mean he just met God? And so then we jump back over to Terran Affair headquarters, where we actually do pick up with that old lady and also Raphael. And we kind of find out that apparently the old lady could be God just in disguise. Either way, you have Raphael wondering how in the world Spawn was able to technically break through the defenses, because honestly, this building is heavily protected. How in the world did he get inside? And that is the moment where you do have the old lady say, well, let me explain something for you. The building defenses were actually made to protect the building from non-believers or people who are technically pure evil. And when it comes to Spawn, he's not pure evil. But on top of that, he is not a non-believer. He actually is a believer in God. And so that right there is actually very important. And the reason why, because technically right now, this old lady who may be God is saying that when it comes to Spawn, he's not a bad guy. He's actually a good guy. Unfortunately, he is just on the wrong side. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.